Hey there, welcome to the Greater You. Today's topic we'll dive right into is the deep philosophy that runs underneath all that we do at the Greater You. You know that we teach a lot from positive psychology. We teach a lot from different philosophy, kind of schools of philosophy and thought. We have our own ideas that we share quite a bit of. Today, we're going to talk about the root of conflict or the heart of conflict. We're going to come at it a little differently. So the guy who started this is Martin Buber. And I may be saying his name incorrectly, but he was a philosopher back late 1800s into the early 1900s. And so his contemporaries, think about some of the contemporaries that would have crossed paths with his content and the things that he shared. People like Freud eventually would have, bumped into his stuff and maybe Nietzsche or Nietzsche, however you'd like to say his name, some of these other philosophers. But basically, where we're at with it is that we reject anything that absolves people of accountability. We reject anything that absolves people from, a connection to a higher power. At the Greater You, we are very adamant that the 7 areas of well-being, one of those is spirituality. And that helps us to have a moral and ethical compass. So Martin Buber, we do like. He is the grandfather of the concept of the I, thou, or I, it philosophy dilemma. We're going to talk about this at length today. Let's do our screen share just to give you a visual here on this concept, something to think about. So at the root of conflict between people is what, Martin would talk about. He called either the I, thou, or I, it relation. What this is really when we're interacting with other people, do we see the person as a person or do you see the person as an object? So think about that for a moment. If I'm seeing a person as a person, how do I view them differently? Do I view them and understand that the person on the other side of whatever it is I'm discussing has feelings, has experiences, has perhaps a family and friends, has desires, dreams. Maybe they've got hurt. Maybe they've got their own trauma. Imagine that, right? If we see people as people and see in that person their humanity and their experiences, which are probably pretty tough, right? You've gone through hard things. Well, the person that you're talking to probably has gone through hard things. They might have gone through harder things than you've gone through. I don't know. Is it really a comparison? Probably not. But then there's this other side, this objectification thing. It's where, you know, we, and we all fall into this, myself included. Think about like the telemarketer that used to call or whatever. Now you get like the bot texts all the time and stuff. But if there's a person on the other side of it, we don't really see them as a person. It's like, oh, a telemarketer is calling me. We've like removed all their humanity and they're as good as a machine to us, right? When we're driving on the road and someone cuts you off, it's like, oh, that car, that guy, that person cut me off. We don't really see them as a person. We see them as an object that's interfering with our ability to get to work or whatever. So easily we fall into objectification. It's an interesting thing. So Buber suggested that there's 2 ways of being. There's this seeing people as people, seeing their humanity, or seeing people as an object to be manipulated or have conflict with, or a thing to get out of the way, or to be utilized or for our own benefit. And then think about this on like a geopolitical level. Think about things you see in the news in your own home country or in international news, and think about how you see people interacting in these news lines. You can tell when a person is seeing a person as a human being, because that tends to spark acts of kindness, humanity, humanitarian aid, support, help. You know, people like Mother Teresa spent their entire lives serving, right? Guys like the Dalai Lama, he's so cool. And what does he do? He just goes around and tries to help people all the time. His whole life is built around trying to see people as people. And then there's those that tend to objectify others, right? You hear a buzzword in social media in recent years, people are throwing the narcissistic label all over the place. Narcissist, narcissist, narcissist. And you know what? We are seeing more narcissism. Why do we see more narcissism? Because more and more people are becoming self-important and they're objectifying others and self-aggrandizing themselves. So when we're in a place of objectification, if we objectify others, we're running the risk to become a jerk. And we at the Greater You want to remove jerkness from ourselves first and foremost. Like, really, do I need to be grumpy if someone cuts me off at the grocery store or takes the last bottle of milk at the grocery store? Or can I just see that they got there first? Or maybe they've got a kid at home that's really hungry. I don't know. But if I can see their humanity, I'm not going to get so angry at them. It's only when I get self-important. One of my favorite quotes from a book called The Bonds That Make Us Free. Really good book. Highly recommend that. Terry Warner wrote the book. The quote, though, is from someone from one of his seminars. I don't remember her name. It was a woman that was like attending one of his seminars. They came up to him after his seminar and said, I totally get it. And he's like, what do you get? And she says, the greatest burden is the burden of the self. That is a human being that understands the heart of conflict. So what does it mean to be a true human being? How do we get ourselves into this person mindset? So think about these points that we put here up in front of you. So we are self-aware. So there's this self-awareness human beings can have. When we're running on autopilot and we lack self-awareness, we're way more likely to objectify ourselves and others. So tapping into our self-awareness is a great solution to bring us into our humanity. Being like aware that, whoa, hey, one of my clinical supervisors years ago, really cool guy. I got along really well with him, probably because he was a former New York police officer and then had become a marriage and family therapist. Dennis Budd, if you're out there, thanks, man. Really cool guy. But he would talk about levels of awareness, and he would say, when people are unaware that they're unaware, then they're prone to this objectification problem, and they're also prone to causing conflict for other people. People that just kind of bumble through life on autopilot, really, they can just intersect with people in unhealthy ways, or at least in ways that they're not really growing themselves. So the goal is to become self-aware. That's what he would teach all those years ago. And we're talking like 25 years ago that I would learn from this guy, 20 years ago. But it was great content, great supervision, great help, great mentorship. And he's like, hey, lean into your awareness, be aware, and teach your people that you're coaching to be aware. So think about this one. We're capable of great selflessness when we are self-aware and when we are aware of others' humanity. When we're only aware of the self and not aware of other people's humanity, we are prone to great selfishness, which is why that woman said the greatest burden is the burden of the self. You remember when your mom and dad used to say to you, get out of your own way? That's one of the things they were talking about. Because when we're in our teenage years and our parents are saying, get out of your own way, it's usually when you're a teenager. It's because the trap of the teenage mind is to become too self-absorbed and to think about yourself and to stop thinking about your parents as people and start seeing them as objects, bank accounts, money bags, car keys. You're not seeing your parents as people, and that's a problem. So overcoming the burden of the self is recognizing that you are a human being interacting with a whole bunch of people with feelings, hopes, dreams, hearts, and they're humans. They're not just objects. Notice that humanity tends to have a moral compass or a desire to find one or define it. Secular people call it like codes of ethics. religious people call them like codes of morality or conduct. And then there's everything in between. But, everyone's trying to define some sort of boundaries, right? That's because there's something inside of us that wants to be viewed as a person and wants to view others as people and wants to not always be in some sort of conflict and needs some sort of sense of order instead of just chaos perpetually. So having a code of morality, ethics, or even being in touch with our conscience can help us to see other people as people, as long as we don't use that code to objectify others, marginalize others, and unhealthily judge others, right? Certainly people use codes of conduct all day long to, you know, metaphorically abuse others or control or manipulate, and that's still objectification. That's not what we're talking about here. So the root of it, against the backdrop of understanding that we can be self-aware, capable of great acts of selflessness, that we can have a moral compass, that ethics, morality, and conscience tend to be important to us. If we're doing that against the backdrop of being a human being that is self-aware and being aware of the others that we're intersecting with, we're more likely then to see them as people and not as objects. That shift that Buber was talking about, Martin was talking about, this I thou versus I it, instead of seeing people as its, see people as people, really is the heart of overcoming and understanding conflict. Once we do this within ourselves and we start getting out of our own way, we are then able to see the humanity in others and have one of the keynote features of being a self-aware individual, and that is compassion. You can have compassion for others when you see their humanity and will allow your humanity to intersect with their humanity. People like Brene Brown call that being okay, being vulnerable, right? So that is it for today's video. Kind of a slight deep dive into understanding the heart of conflict. We do think that this is a very important topic. Dive into it. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section and interact with us. We've got a lot of ability to help people overcome the conflicts that are in their lives. And that is one of our main objectives at the Greater You. So thank you for your time. Like the video, subscribe, and we will talk to you again soon.